everyone, it's Julian, and today I'm going to be showing you how to make cosmic techno like Pleasurekraft. As usual, you can get the project file and samples and MIDI and presets from this video in the description, and if you're a patron on my Patreon, check there because it's all available already. And yeah, let's get started. So, we're at 127 BPM, a little bit slower. You know, usually techno is like 128 to anywhere like 150 even. But 127 is very good for this more like progressive style. It gives the notes with like the arps and stuff, you know, like sounds like this. Kind of a little bit more space to breathe in between the notes. So yeah, the first sound that we have here is the kick, which sounds like this. So this is a pretty standard sort of techno kick. Basically what's happening here is I have this dry kick. And then we have the rumble. So this audio effect track here is the rumble. What we got going on here is you can see I have two chains. We have a dry chain and then we have a wet chain. On the wet chain, I have a few effects. So I'll just turn everything off and kind of show you from the ground up. So the first thing that we have here is this delay, which sounds like this. So you can kind of hear it's a little bit of a different rhythm than you would usually use. Usually when you use a delay to make a rumble kick like this, or at least when I do it, I usually do like 16 notes like this. And then you distort it and get that. But by setting this to dotted eighth notes here, you can hear it actually makes that like doo-doo a little bit more pronounced. Like now, instead of just getting like doo-doo-doo, we're getting like doo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo. Like it's a little bit more intense that way. And like I said, that's another thing, or like I was talking about with the slower BPM, that's another thing with the slower BPM. You know, if you do stuff like this to kind of make it sound more intense, like having that constant doo-doo-doo-doo underneath everything, it'll make it kind of feel a little bit faster. So yeah, and then after the delay, I have a distortion. So you're not just distorting the signal, it's making it very overblown. But if you listen, you can notice it's really bringing out that low end. So then the next thing here is just a low pass filter. And there we go, we have our rumble. Now I have a few extra effects on here as well. The first thing is this EQ8, which just sounds like this. That's just kind of carving out some room. You can hear it kind of cleans it up and makes it fit better with the kick. You really want this to sound like one instrument. Like you don't want it to sound like a kick and a bass together. You want it to sound like just the kick. So it's important to do stuff like this to kind of make the kick and this bass fit together a little bit better. And then after that, I also have this auto pan. So here's what that sounds like. So you can hear that's basically just doing like this sort of fake sidechain thing. I have it on quarter notes and then we have it, the phase is on 0, so it's just affecting the volume. But you can hear it's just making the rumble sort of go up in volume like that. So it's like so it's not just playing at the same time as the dry kick. So yeah, and then that is it for the rumble chain. After that, the only other thing I have on there actually is just this drum bus. Here's without this. And then with it. So basically with this kick, you know, it's already a pretty fat kick sample. Like if you listen to this kick, I mean on its own, like it's definitely already doing the trick. But this drum bus just takes it that last little bit and just kind of pulls it up in the mix. You know, fattens up that low end a bit. It also helps to glue together the kick and the rumble. Like I was saying, you want this to sound like one instrument and not like two things playing side by side. So yeah, you can see with this, I just have it set on the hard setting. I find the hard setting to be the best for sort of like gluing the rumble with the kick because like if I put it on medium, it's still fattening it up. But it just makes that extra little bit of difference when you set it to hard. So yeah, that is it for the kick. Next thing that we have here is this hi-hat, which sounds like this. So this is the hi-hat that's playing on the upbeats. And what's happening here is it's 3 layers and then I have them grouped together being processed kind of as one. So what it is it's the shaker, which you can hear is kind of filling out the mid-range, this ride, which is giving it a bit of width. You can hear this is kind of wide because I have a bit of chorus on it, and yeah, it's just kind of giving it like something like that with that kind of texture. And then this hi-hat here is adding that really bright high end you can hear. And so this is the key with this style of techno. You don't want to just use, like, you wouldn't want to use just the ride, for example. You know, that's a bit weak. Or if we use just this hi-hat. It's just not the same as when you have it all layered out. Like that, like, you really need to pay attention to making your hi-hat sound big as well. I find with a lot of tracks that are like, that people send in to me that are close to sounding professional, but aren't quite professional or quite there just yet, a lot of times it's the hi-hat. And just not having it hit hard enough like that. So yeah, and then the only effects I have on there is just a bit of drum bus. This helps to kind of glue these 3 layers together. Here's without it. And then with it. So you can hear, kind of makes them sound more like one thing. And then we just have an EQ8 cutting out the line and giving it a little bit of a high-end boost to make it a bit brighter. And that is it for that hi-hat / hi-hats. Next thing that we have here is a synth hi-hat, which sounds like this. This is a really simple sound. You can see, yeah, very straightforward. It's just playing straight 16 notes. It's meant to be a little bit kind of underneath that other hi-hat, as you can hear. And with this one, what it is it's operator, and I've just taken some white noise, and I put it through a bandpass filter. And so you can hear when you put it through the bandpass filter, that takes it from sounding like white noise and kind of turns it into a hi-hat. And then if you turn up this resonance here, you can kind of make it sound like even more like a hi-hat. So that's why I have that set the way that it is. So yeah, this one's really simple. This is a good technique for making hi-hats just because you can get like whatever timbre you want. Like again, this is meant to be underneath the other hi-hats a little. So it really helps to be able to go in and just dial it in perfectly like that with having like the filter there. As opposed to like, basically, you know, you can hear we're getting around a lot of different types of sounds by doing this. And it's just nice to be able to get whatever sound you want and make it, like I said, just a bit darker than that other hi-hat. Next sound that we have here is the break lead, which sounds like this. So for this sound, it is actually not that complicated with the notes. It seems crazy. We're in D sharp minor, and it's basically just playing stuff from the D sharp minor scale, and then just being very good at like bouncing it around the octaves. Like you can see here, for example. If I take these notes down, that's literally just D sharp, the 5th of D sharp, A sharp, and then this note G sharp, and then F, the 9th. So it's like, it's not that complicated. It's just about knowing how to spread it around the octaves. Like this here, for example. It's literally just... But because I put this note up, it makes it a little bit more interesting. So for the sound on this one, I made it using wavetable actually. And what we got going on here is, you can see we have 2 saw waves. I've got them detuned a little bit, and the second one is a little bit quieter. And they're going into the slow pass filter. The filter is being automated the whole way through. As you can see, it just gives it some movement, it makes it a bit more exciting, and makes it not just like really static. This can really help if you're having a hard time making your leads sound professional. Try giving them a lot more automation with the filter and just letting it just move throughout the track. It'll bring it to life a lot more. After that, I have the amp envelope set like that. So yeah, and then we have this envelope, which is on the filter. You can see that moving there. And then the last thing that we have here inside of Wavetable is the unison. I used this noise setting. This is really cool for getting like an interesting kind of unison. If I set it on classic, you can hear. That's cool too, but that noise setting, it just gives it a more interesting texture, I feel like. So yeah, after that, I just have a bit of chorus, just kind of spreading it out, you know, playing up that sort of unison-y sound. Then we have a bit of echo doing 8th notes, as well as a bit of reverb. These are both just giving it space. Yeah, kind of working together. You can hear if I turn either one of them off, it doesn't have as much atmosphere to it. And also with the echo, you can see I have a bit of automation here at the end. So just kind of transitioning that sound into the next part. And then yeah, the reverb set like that. After that, we just have a bit of drum bus. You can see I've got this on the hard setting, and we got this turned up quite a bit. So this is really fattening the lead up. This is really important. If I turn this off, it's just not as strong, you know? When we bring it in, it really gives it that full professional kind of loudness there. So then the last thing that we have on there is just an EQ8 to cut out the lawn and make some room for the other stuff that's in the lawn. And that is it for the break lead. The next sound we have here is this ARP, which sounds like this. So with this one, with the notes, it's very similar to what I was saying with the break lead. It's just kind of following this D sharp minor scale. Like, you can see it's D sharp, and then we have like this F and F sharp there, and then we have A sharp, the fifth. Yeah, another F sharp. Again, not that complicated. The thing that makes this one interesting is these two notes, actually, that I just put down an octave. What's happening here is basically we're getting... It's like, in the first time you get this note, and then the second time you get that note. And what's happening is your brain, when it hears this note, is wanting to hear this note, because that's what sounds quote-unquote perfect, because we've heard minor scales 1,000,001 times in our lives. But because it's kind of like teasing you, when you hear that first, that ninth, the F, that's what's giving this some movement there. So yeah, it's like, it's not actually that hard to write these, but it's just about knowing like how to make something more interesting with stuff like that. Now for the sound on this one, I made it using analog. You can see we just have two saw waves an octave apart going into a low pass filter. The filter has a bit of an envelope on it, and I'm also automating the filter in the intro there to kind of build it up. Then we have the amp envelope just set very similar to the filter envelope. And then the last thing we have there inside of analog is just a bit of vibrato. That just gives it a bit more, no pun intended, but a bit more vibe, a bit more character. And yeah, after that we have this chorus. I'll show you here's without this. And with it, so this is subtle, but it really helps to kind of just spread everything out and give it a bit more space in the mix, a bit more dimension. Kind of helps to put it in a different place in the stereo field as the other sounds, so it helps to make it stand out as well. After that, we have a bit of echo, and this is doing actually just dotted eighth notes, but I've got it on the ping pong setting. So ping pong delay basically means stereo delay. It means what's happening is it's bouncing back and forth from the left to the right ear. As you can hear, yeah, this really brings the sound to life. Like, it's a subtle thing, but it helps to really just, kind of like I was saying with the chorus, you know, spread the sound out. Just kind of put it in its own place. And also just give it something interesting that you can't get just from programming in notes with a synth. After that, I have a bit of reverb. This is also giving it space. Here's without this. And with this, you can hear the reverb is very important. Just the delay on its own, it's not going to quite cut it. But yeah, and then after that, we just have a bit of drum bus, just fattening the sound up. And then I have this auto pan here, and this is the same one, or very similar to the one actually, that was on the rumble chain. It's just kind of giving it this like fake sort of sidechain thing. It's very similar to using LFO tool. It's like when you have a techno kick, you can't really sidechain anything to that. It's just going to duck out of the way. So we do it this way instead. And then the key here is the automation. You can see I just automated it to come on during this part. It's simple. But yeah, because you don't want to have that being sidechained in the break there. So the next thing that we have here is the drop lead, which sounds like this. So I wanted this to be sort of like a lead in the drop that would be similar to the break lead, but it would be a bit different, you know, kind of allowing the elements in the drop to breathe a little bit more. So with this one, you can see the notes, it's very simple. It's actually just kind of walking up a D sharp minor scale as well, like D sharp. Like it's only 6 notes in total, but yeah, it's just kind of like slowly walking up that, you know, giving us something that's moving. If you listen, a lot of these other two elements that are playing are cool, but they're very atmospheric. They're kind of staying in the same place and just rocking with that. So this gives you something that's like constantly changing and kind of building the tension. For the sound on this one, I made it using analog. So what we got here is we have 2 saw waves. I've got these in octave and 7 semitones apart. So you can see this one is an octave down, and then this one is 7 semitones up. So yeah, just kind of, you know, making it a bit more interesting. You can hear if I make this not 7 semitones up, not quite the same. And then I have that going into a low pass filter. The filter's got an envelope on it, and we got the amp envelope set like that. And the only other thing here inside the synth is just a bit of vibrato to give it some more character, as well as a bit of unison. This helps to fatten it up. After that, I have a bit of chorus. It's just giving it a little bit of space. You can see the dry wet isn't up super high, so it's pretty subtle, but it is giving it just a little bit of a bigger and wider sound, more dimension. After that, we have this echo and this reverb. I'm talking about these together because they're basically doing the same thing, just kind of giving it some space. You can hear with those. After that, we just have a bit of drum bus, which is fattening the sound up. Here's without that. You can, that's really essential for the sound. It's kind of like that break lead. It's just like, without it, it just sounds way too thin. And then the last thing we have on there is just an EQ8 cutting out the line, and that is it for the drop lead. The next sound we have here on the last synth is this chord, which sounds like this. So this is playing through the whole thing, you can see, and the notes on this one are really simple. It's just a D sharp minor sort of chord here. You can see we have D sharp, and then the minor third, F sharp, and then I just have an F underneath that. That semitone difference there between those two notes gives it a lot of like uneasiness, I guess you could say, which really aids in making the track sound dark. So for the sound on this one, I made this one using analog. It's just 2 saw waves going into a low pass filter. The low pass is being automated. You can see like it builds up there and then goes down, and then it builds up again, and then yeah, that is really it for inside the synth on that one. After that, I just have a bit of chorus to kind of spread it out a bit more like I've been using on a lot of the other synths. And then we have some reverb. With this one, I didn't want to have any delay because it's just really a drone. So we have some reverb giving it space. Then we have a bit of drum bus. This, even though this is a pad, you still want it to sound fat and big and just like full. You know, I feel like the drum bus or saturation or like these kind of coloring effects are really meant to do that. Like kind of just make your sound big and make them sound professional. After that, I have this auto pan, same one that was on the ARP. It's just like doing that sort of fake sidechain there, since we can't sidechain into the kick, and then it's turned off during that part. And then the last thing we have on there is just this high pass filter, just cutting out some line. That is it for the chord. So the next thing that we have here is this first clap, which sounds like this. This is actually really simple. This is just meant to be kind of like a quick effect at the start of this break here. What we got going on is we just have the clap sample. And then I have that going through a delay doing quarter notes as well as a really, really long reverb. So that's what's giving it that like long held out thing there. And then I have a drum bus on there. And the drum bus is cool. It's not even just like for fattening the sound up. You can hear if I turn this off, it's almost like it just makes the reverb and the delay come out that much more. Because what can happen a lot of times if you put a lot of reverb and delay on a sound like this and then put it in like a very full mix, the reverb and delay get kind of drowned out. But if we have something like this, you can hear it kind of brings it up a bit more. So yeah, and then the last sound that we have here is the second clap, which sounds like this. So this is meant to be more of a transitional sort of clap effect thing here. This is actually the same sample as that clap you just heard, just that one. And it's just playing those little clusters of 16th notes. And then I have this echo here, which is automating up. And with the echo, you can see I have the feedback up pretty high, so it's already doing a lot of that like long self-oscillating thing, as you can hear. But what's happening is I have the dry wet automating up. So it's just getting more intense. And then kind of fades out once the break comes. So yeah, this is a pretty popular effect with techno. It's a nice way to build tension, you know. You can't just do like an EDM or like a house build or something like that. So, you know, stuff like this is kind of a more strategic and interesting way to create those kind of building effects. So, that's me for this one, guys. I hope you enjoyed. As always, make sure to like this video as well as subscribe. And let me know what you think of this video in the comments. Like I said in the beginning, you can get the project file and samples and MIDI and presets and everything you just heard and everything I just showed you in this video in the description. And if you're a patron on my Patreon, check there because it's already available. Thank you so much, guys, and I will see you tomorrow with another video.